Okay, got it. Hello, everybody. This is Elisha Keating from wisdomseekers.net, and we are starting a new program today. It's called Ascending with Nicola. We're going to be discussing various ascended masters, especially the females, not just, but especially. And hopefully that goes well for you. How are you doing, Nicola?
I'm doing quite well, and quite an adventure with studying with them and mentoring with the Ascended Masters. And it would be my joy to share a little bit about what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing with them.
Well, you have shared a little bit with me, and I find it fascinating.
Well, I do too, actually. So that's great. And I'm hoping that all the people who are joining us today are also interested and find it fascinating as well. So, and it is what I'd like to do, first of all, is to start out by saying that anything that I say here, if it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Just let it go. Because for us to be empowered, we have to come to our truth on our own. And all the information that I have read and experienced, there are parts that I have let go of, like it doesn't resonate with me, and other parts that resonate so beautifully with me. And it goes for every spiritual teacher that I've ever had, that I have had that experience. And I started out very, I would say, naive in the whole thing. And so at first I would say, oh, that's got to be right, and if nothing else could be right. Well, what I'm finding out is that on this journey, the spiritual journey or the journey of life, is that I can hold truths that are true at some times and not at others, or that I can hold the exact opposite viewpoint and that also be true. So can be very confusing, but I like the idea that of resonance. If it feels right, if I get a full body response to it, then it's real and it's wonderful. And there are times when I didn't get that, but about 2 or 3 months to a year, heard the same thing, and then I had a full bodied response. So it's about what I can receive at the time of that information coming in, and then later. And I've also realized as I'm studying things that I have a certain perception, and then I go back later and read the same passage, and I have an entirely different perception, or that I completely forgot the whole idea in the beginning. So I said, I've read this before. What does this mean? So
Yeah, no, I've had that experience too. It's quite eye-opening.
yeah. And so I would say that I have been on my spiritual journey since I was a child. And the reason for that is that we do prepare, and that's my resonance, that we prepare our life experiences, not the entire life, but certain experiences before we actually are born and when we're still in spirit. So I have resonated with that idea off and on throughout my life. Sometimes it things true and other times it doesn't. But right now it really feels right.
So we do have a question, and it's not quite on topic, but it's close. Astha Bhardwaji says, what is on the other side of spiritual awakening? If you'd like to answer this, thank you, ladies. That's a tough one.
Well, I guess the idea of awake and asleep are coming in there,
Mhm.
So it's mostly being like I remember I said naive. What that time in my innocence, I did not know.
Yeah.
And uh, but I still was on a quest, even as a child, being um, baptized into the Lutheran Church and becoming quite steeped in the a traditional Christian religion. And I remember while I was sitting in church, how uncomfortable I was with that preacher yelling at us how bad we were.
Mhm.
So that never resonated with me. So I said, he's a pretty angry guy, It wasn't even connecting it with God. I said, that doesn't make sense to me. But I was still very Christian-y, I would say, at the time. And it's been a journey. And then there was when I became agnostic. And we're talking about spiritual awakenings. I think there are different levels of spiritual awakening. And we do see live in a universe of, a earth experience of duality. So we think there's opposites to everything. Well, there may be, but there is circular motion too, and there's spirals of knowledge and spirals of experience. And what may be true on this level may be on a different level, a little bit more of it or a little bit less of what we had in the past. So let me think about examples. Um, let's see. When I was in my 20s and in college, or my early 20s, I was agnostic, thinking, well, is there a God? If there is, I would like to know, show me. So, and what I saw under the microscope was the full life cycle of a fungus called Alomyces. They have asexual production and sexual production, where two zygote becomes, there's a male cell and a female cell, and they come together and produce a zygote, and then and so forth and so on. And then there are things about budding off the branch, and then there's more of the mycelia and stuff like that. After watching it for an hour and a half occur, I sat back and I said, there is a God. There is no way that can happen by chance. No way. And over the years, I've heard people who I deeply admire, including Carl Sagan and let's see, another astrophysicist. I tend to be very much enthralled with science and nature and things like that. And Neil deGrasse Tyson. Both of those people believed in evolution and that everything happened by chance and so forth and so on. And for a while, I bought that, but I don't buy that right now. So that's an example. And I think that because as I become spiritually awakened, I see more of how life is created and how each molecule and every vibration and every little nuance to that occurs. It's fascinating to me. It's exciting, and I am in awe of it, really.
Yeah,
And I laugh because I'm amused because it's so delightful to me.
it is. It's extremely exciting as you become more aware of that which is around us, it becomes more, I guess, holistic. It's sort of how this interacts with this, and they're not even close, and there's just so much information out there that is coming together.
Yeah. And again, information is only part of the awakening. And I think information is very important. And I don't think we should be just intellectualizing it much in the same way that Neil deGrasse Tyson does. But I could tell you by looking at him, as well as Carl Sagan, they all had a childlike awe of the universe. And that to me is spirituality. They really get it at some level, but they're very focused in this one aspect of life. And I think spiritual awakening is awakening to even more, and then even more, and then even more.
Yeah, when you've got a box, it's like thinking outside of the box.
But then you might be in another one. So then you have to, you know. So
But there's one saying that we've heard over and over again in our lifetime, which also relates to what's it like on the other side of spiritual awakening. Before spiritual awakening, chop wood, carry water. After spiritual awakening, chop wood, carry water.
right.
Mm.
But you may be carrying it with a new awareness of the
Totally.
wood and the water. The wood is alive, the water is alive.
Yeah.
And everything that you do matters. Everything. Everything that you think matters.
That was what I found very difficult to understand, was that what I think, how does that affect other people? And at the time when I was learning this, I didn't have my mind wasn't in control. It was sort of out of control. I just thought whatever. And I'm going, well, I really hope that isn't true, because some of my thoughts are not to the highest spiritual.
Well, so what? It's a part of our all learning, right? Because when we're in spirit, we are evolving even in spirit if we don't have a physical form. But a really quick way, a really fast way, a really awesome way is to be in this physical life as a spiritual being. And not all of us is here, from what I understand. I don't quite get that yet, but I'm starting to have glimpses of it. And the thing is that when I do the biofields, for instance, there's another realm that I work on. And at first, I really wasn't plugged into it at all. But I kept having these experiences as I was doing the biofields. I said, okay, there's more to this, because I just took it kind of on faith that this worked. And I also noticed that every time a biofield was sent to me, that I felt better, and I had more energy, or I had a whole lot less energy, but I had more knowledge. I mean, it was a progression. I found it okay to express my emotions. There was a whole series of awakenings that were well beyond what I had before. And even though I had had spiritual experiences that were absolutely amazing and astonishing, my daily life wasn't reflecting that. And I think that if you remember, or if anybody has experienced or watched a program or a person talking about near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, that when they come back, you talk about chop wood, carry water, they don't want to be here. It's just really their life is awful. I mean, they're poor, they're sick, they had a wreck or something they had to heal from.
Mhm.
And so it's like it's like that whole saying says, before enlightenment or and after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So, but each experience can lead us to an even greater spiritual awakening. And then another experience can lead us to another spiritual awakening if we allow it.
Mhm. And the thing is too, you're never quite there. You, people will look at you and say, "Wow, you're really awake. You're really aware." And I would go, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just me."
Well, yeah, but you are. And if you probably are a lot different now than you
Oh,
were 20 years ago. So
oh,
you are more awake and alive. The thing is that a lot of people will tend to put other people on a pedestal if they seem to have it all, like they have all the success and they're beautiful and they're radiant and they have all this accumulated wealth and health and a magical life, that we tend to make them more important or amazing than the rest of us. But the fact is, that's not true. We're all the same in spirit. We are all loved. We are all beautiful. We are all important. We are all magnificent and awesome.
yeah. There's no one more important than the other one.
That's correct.
Yeah. We have some questions, actually. Ashla says, yes, I can resonate with that. I just want to know more and more. And Maddie says, why is it I that I had always had way more spiritual happenings before I knew I was on the spiritual path? And she says, now I'm receiving nothing. But I think what it is, Maddie, is that you're receiving a lot. It's just old hat now.
Right. I think we do accommodate to certain input. And Maddie is growing. I can see her light brighter every time I see her online. She is amazingly growing. She's expanding, and I think we need that expansion. And I feel it. You know, when she said she was meditating that one time, and she just saw hearts, and I mean, I saw these big, beautiful heart-shaped spheres and I would say heart-shaped lights around her that were pink. So she's got a lot of love, and I think that we tend to believe that our love is important or whatever, but in fact, that is our mission: is to be the love.
And we acclimatize to it so that we don't recognize it. But a spirit says, I always wondered what would classify a light being as an ascended master, perhaps them being teachers to us. Question. I wonder if you feel Mother Mary as being an ascended master.
Oh, absolutely. Mother Mary is an ascended master. So is White Buffalo Woman. That brings me to tell you a little bit about what I believe to be an ascended master and my knowingness is. And I've had to come to this over time because I've heard it for, I'd say 20 years at least. That there are people who have walked a physical life and have been physically and emotionally challenged here on earth and have managed to keep walking in love. And that and their whole lifetime is a legacy of love. That is an ascended master, which means that every one of us had that potential.
I suspect every one of us will eventually reach that stage.
So there are many people, there are many ascended masters, many thousands and thousands of ascended masters. So the ones that I'm particularly focused in on right now are part of what we call the Sophia Dragon Tribe. They are ascended masters that have come to help the balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. They are talking specifically about the divine feminine Christed consciousness. So that's where I'm studying right now, and it is amazing. And I have, for about 3 years before I came into this, I was just doing the Christ consciousness type of meditations. And to me, the Christ means pure love and pure light. That's what it means. There's no femininity to it and no masculinity to it. But because the feminine and the masculine expressions here on earth have been so skewed for a very long time, that I tend to focus right now, for me personally, on the feminine ascended masters, feminine Christed consciousness. But that doesn't mean that I'm not also focused on the ascended masters that walk this earth as men. That includes Jesus and Saint Germain and Meher Avatar Babaji. So all of those are also ascended masters, and they also pair and are associated with this group that I'm working with right now.
What do you see as the difference between the male-female energy?
There, okay. All right. It's sort of like the breakdown or the first layer after oneness. Okay, oneness. So from the oneness comes a creation. And from that creation, there is a masculine principle and a um, feminine consciousness. Feminine consciousness is a burden type of consciousness, a creation type, whereas the masculine is the force of direction. So, those symbols of masculine and feminine is just very interesting about, the arrow and the cross. It's just fascinating with the circles. Both of them have circles, which is the oneness.
Mhm.
So out of the oneness comes direction and this cross, which assimilates the coming together and to create more. So that's kind of my perception of the differences between the divine masculine and divine feminine. They are one, they come from oneness, and there is nothing that is better or less than the other. But on our planet and humanity, particularly in highly patriarchal societies and thinking, that the masculine is considered to be better than feminine, or the men over the women. And so that's my perception.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I always my way of saying it would be the women are the anchor, the men are the ones that go out and create, not create, because they can't create without the female, but they put things into action.
Action, yeah,
Yeah.
or direction, or in sort of, that is my perception. And I haven't gotten, a download necessarily from creator on that, but it is my perception right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that
And
one
that
is better than the other now. Gosh, you gotta really think about that. Is once we start going at he's better than or she's better than, I was actually experiencing that in my, I would say, late 20s, when I was very much a feminist at the time. And so I was very much into the National Organization of Women and all that. But there was something that was off, and it really got me. Like, well, if I have a son, how does this work? If I birth a son, how is this going to work? So I wasn't going as far as some women, where they were ragging on men.
are burning dross.
Yeah, well, so I had to pull back and really get right with what I was feeling. And I think your heart is where your direction of your higher self is. That's the throne of your higher self, is your heart. And if you lead a heart-directed life, you will leave a legacy of love, and it will affect others in a positive way.
And you can tell that when we have good parents, like my mother was a good person, and she left a lot of people behind with a lot of good memories.
Yeah.
And me too, actually. Spirit says like a bow and arrow for the man and the woman, and both needed in union to create movement forward.
Absolutely. Spirit's right on,
Mm.
in my opinion.
So, but I remember you talking about when we first met, I think you were talking more about the green Tara. There's a progression to what you're going through, right?
Mhm.
And at this moment, like you said, you're paying more attention to the feminine divine, which I think is pretty pretty cool, actually. But would you like to explain where you started out and which way you were developing?
Okay. Well, let me give you even more background than that. Before I met you, I got to send a shout out to Linda Johnson for introducing you to me and me to you.
Linda's pretty cool lady.
Yeah. So, hi, Linda. um, I would say that my spiritual awakening came at a time when I learned that my brother had the possibility of having HIV. I went out to see him when he was sick, and when I came home, there was a program on TV that talked about a spiritual healer that was on when I walked in the door. And I had my bags with me and everything, and I put them down and I sat myself down in front of the TV and listened about this man that had fallen off a cliff somewhere and broke a lot of bones in his body. And he was told that he would never walk again. Well, the spiritual healer came along and helped him, and then the man was able to walk again. So I said, okay, God, I want a spiritual healer now. Send him to me right now. Oh, I mean, I was in church. I was a member of Unity at the time. And within 2 days, I got a call from a lady who said, you got to meet Robert. He's a spiritual healer. Okay. So this is about when you really start to ask, your higher self will orchestrate the synchronicities and miracles in your life to that end. And my friend gave me his number. I called him, and he said to me, before I send it to your brother, I want you to experience it. And he was an astrophysicist, and he had some kind of machine that sent the Earth's energies out. Well, it turns out that Russian scientists, along with a lot of others, and also some esoteric teachers in the late 1800s and early 1900s, had done an analysis on the Earth's energies. And the Earth's energies are also called the 7 rays that were in the esoteric field. And he called them the Earth energies, and he actually measured 7 frequencies that the Earth sends out to sustain life.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then there's a University of Berkeley study or a Davis study about nutrition. They were able to account for 70% of our energy coming from food, and 30% they couldn't account for. That 30% comes from the Earth. You cannot live without that 30% from the Earth. The Earth sustains life.
So it must be very difficult for the people who travel out in outer space unless they have.
They actually do decline in physical health. They do.
Their bodies, I know their bodies become very weak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We are meant to have this gravity. Okay. Other beings from other planets can't really tolerate this gravity. Okay. So anyway, so he also stated that there are spiritual energies, and the spiritual energies go all the way up to 100 megahertz or something to that, or 1,000 megahertz. I can't remember what the actual terminology was, but he stated to me that when he tuned into my brother had started to dislodge from the Earth's energies. Mm. So that's the first thing he did, was to reattach those energies. But I had to experience it first. And so I said, okay, whatever. And I was on my way to go back to see my brother in Houston, Texas. I live in Atlanta, and he was living near Atlanta. And so I went to his house and I experienced I was just nervous because I was looking at my clock. I need to get to the airport, you know. And he said, well, you know, I take these pictures before and after, you know, the Carolyn photography and all that. And I said, oh, please, you know, let me go. I got to go to the airport. So on my way to the airport, I was with my son. I picked up my son and I went to the airport, and he wanted to have some snack from a grocery store or from a, you know, one of these the gas station stores, whatever. And when I was given the amount to pay, it was like 15 cents above what it was supposed to be. And he says, well, that's taxes. And that's the first time I've ever heard in my head that taxes were 15 cents, above what I was buying. I said, that's ridiculous. And I remember this anger coming over me. I really had to calm myself down. It was like this giant, massive rage inside me. I just couldn't almost handle it. I had to really push it back down to get myself to the airport and to go to the to where my brother was. And my friend called me, who had referred me to Robert, and said, how are you doing? And I said, I don't think this is working. I said, I feel angry all the time. I just can't handle this. I just feel so angry. And she laughed and she said, it's working. So I started to let it go. I said, just let the anger go, not push it down, but to let it go. And that's was that after I did that, I started having spiritual dreams of rainbows and golden wheels and amazing things. I thought, wow. And so I realized the spiritual healing was taking place in me with just one session. And so we kept the sessions going for my brother, but there was one thing that he taught me about spiritual healing, and that is there's always free will. No matter how much spiritual healing, if the person isn't in the inner plane, I'm not talking about the conscious person, but the inner plane wanted to join his partner in heaven. And it was just amazing. It helped him a lot. And the spiritual teacher called me after my brother passed. I said, what did this do for my brother? It didn't heal him in this life. And it was very hard for me to accept it. And I was very angry as well. But he said that unless we have an inner plane decision or a higher self decision to heal, it won't happen. Not in the way that I want it, but in the way they wanted, or my brother wanted it. He wanted to go on. And at a much later time, I had several dreams of him visiting me, saying he was okay and he was beautiful. He was absolutely beautiful. And I got the direct information that he was extremely happy over there because he was with his mate. So,
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a medium, so most people on the other side that I communicate with are really happy. They are, but the energy is very interesting. Is that when they come through and they give love, send love, it's really hard to describe because the energy is so much more intense than we have words for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually my prayer for myself and for, as I do it, I know it's going to happen for others to have that love manifest in me and in my life, and to feel it and to radiate it. And I listened to a man on YouTube called John Davis. John Davis is a reincarnation of the Apostle John.
Oh.
And he knew he had a past life regression and he remembered everything about Jesus. And he said how he came to be a disciple was one day he was fishing on a boat and Jesus came to him, just walked on board and just, I think, touched him like, hi, how you doing, kind of thing.
He walked in the water?
No. He was just on the boat. It wasn't the water thing. Because he was a fisherman, right? So, I mean, that's how they did things back then. So he felt this love from this man. And he said, the moment he walked away, he didn't feel it because, oh my God, I've got to be with this man because of that love. So that's an ascended master. Jesus was an ascended master. So that love is so important to me to bring to this earth right now.
Mhm.
So, and that's what ascended masters did. Mary Magdalene did. Mother Mary did. Green Tara did. Isis did. Hathor did. White Buffalo Woman, Kuan Yin. Those are the masters that I'm studying with and mentoring with them as much as I possibly can in the next, I would say, year or so, when I become a spiritual leader of the Sophia Circle of these ascended masters.
Just to comment first. There's something, Spirit Feather says, there's something I came upon recently in the energies called sacred rage. And what you're talking about, this is confirmation that it really does serve a purpose. It's part of the process to learn and heal humanness.
Oh, absolutely. I think you, Spirit. She's sort of my counterpart in a way. When I do biofields with her, she and I we see the same things. Mother Mary came in. I didn't mention her, but she mentioned her. Yes, of course, Mother Mary came in for her.
Yeah.
And then White Buffalo Woman. Goodness, what amazing things! So that's, we're still experiencing these amazing things with each other, and we so need each other in this, I think. And it's just interesting to me that John Davis, who's a reincarnation of the John of old, experienced the love of Jesus. Jesus was just radiating this is new to him. He's never seen this before, never experienced this before. But there are many people on this planet right now that are exuding that love. Mm-hmm. And in different levels. And as we incorporate and we embody this love, people will continue to say, well, what do you have? What's going on? I want to be with you. And then when they're taught, and then they bring their love in. And so that is the starting of the golden age of miracles here on this planet. Right?
Yeah, that's the prophecy for sure.
Oh, it's exciting. It's fun. And it's not to be trapped under any kind of phenomena like, oh gosh, this happened. Therefore, I don't have to do any more work because this happened. Or, I got enlightened in the 90s, ta-da, but I still had lots to learn and lots to do since my brother passed. And that has been, I went into the Native American teachings shortly after that. I got a divorce, which is not fun. I lost my mother shortly after, then my aunt, and then eventually my father. They're all very traumatic experiences for me, but that was part of my growth. And then, of course, I wanted to learn more about what happens after death. So I was able to process each death with that knowledge. And then realizing now there's no death really. But I'm more embodying that knowledge now than I did when I lost my brother.
Yes, I know when my mother passed away, it's about 5 years now. I didn't ever actually mourn her because she didn't actually leave. She still comes around and chats and things. So I for me, I'm lucky that way. But not everybody has that ability, can talk to those who have passed on.
Well, in my estimation, if we just sit down and talk to our dearly departed, like, hey mom, how you doing? I love you. Hope everything is okay. They hear that.
Yeah, they do.
So even just knowing that and not actually having, an apparition in my bedroom, that's my mom there going, everything's fine. The last week I went to London, that sort of thing. It's not like that. But if we just know that that's true, that we can communicate with them, we can just do it. We can I got many times I sat down and I'm not even sitting down. I'm seeing when I'm driving or walking around. It's like, hey, Dad, remember the time when such and such? That was really a cool time. I really love those picnics. I really, really thought that was really a lot of fun. Thank you for taking me on picnics when I was a kid.
Yeah. And then honestly, if you just sit quietly for a minute in that space, you probably hear their answer.
You can, with practice. Yeah.
Mhm.
You're open to it. You definitely. Because
Yeah.
I think we all are, I think we're all capable of that.
I believe we are. I honestly believe that we're all open. We're all have the ability to be telepathic or empathic, and I personally feel that that's our normal way of being. That
Mm-hmm.
we're returning to what is normal rather than and we have been in abnormal, not being able to hear people telepathically.
Yeah. For one thing, I wanted to tell you that from an early age, and through no fault of their parents, they teach us a certain way of being in this lifetime. And we kind of get over exercised in being nice and sharing and doing and sort of being one to shut up and not let anyone know how we really feel, so forth and so on. So part of our experiences that might be your experience, but you can change that, and you can change it to starting to exercise, speaking out. And that's the throat chakra. That's part of my thing as a child and as an adult for most of my life. And whenever my husband was raging or whatever, I'd shut up, let him have his way and all that. So I really couldn't make my marriage last because of that, because I could not seem to find my voice. I'm a real good runaway, so bye.
At the time, that was the option you had.
Right.
And
So
we have to live with the options we have at the time, which when hindsight, you could have done something different. But that's hindsight.
so that brings me to this about our word, about how we speak, about if we are in alignment with our true heart and true nature and who we truly are, that our words have power and that those words can speak into creation, anything that we want.
Mhm.
If we say, well, I don't know anything about that, I can't do that, then that's true. But if you say, I'd like to know more about that, maybe I can do that, maybe I can be a great businesswoman, maybe I can be this is really cool, I'd like to learn, or whatever, those things have power. Every time you speak, you are projecting into the universe something that can gather substance and return to you fulfilled. And the more emotion and feeling that you put into it, the more real and faster it comes. Whether it's negative situation, like I can't do that, I'm for me, I'm not poor, I'm broke, or one day I'm going to be rich and I'm going to be able to afford this and do this, and oh, this is going to be great. Well, right now, I'm so grateful that this is a possibility. That has power. And if you keep focusing on that, then that will gather the substance of the universe and bring it back to you.
Was it you that said that you feel it and then you get it?
You can feel it. And the more you feel it as being real, this is not me. This is me repeating what I have heard.
Yeah, because I read that this morning and it just sounded like you.
Okay, well, true enough. And your feelings are very important. And if you feel poor, you are poor. If you feel rich, you are rich. And it just depends on your mindset and so forth. And you can change your mind. And I think one of my mentors, in a sense, although he doesn't know it, is Joe Dispenza. He does talk about um, he calls it becoming a new person, basically. Because the old ways, if you're thinking the same thoughts, doing the same things, then you're going to get the same results. It's not just him, as many scientists say the same thing. So, including Einstein. So what that means is in his premise, he calls it uh, losing your personality or becoming a new personality. You know, getting rid of your old self to become the new self. So it's just a matter of choice, but it's also a matter of practice. And he talks about really practicing the feeling. What would it feel like to drive that new car? Oh, it's so great. Oh man, thank you for giving me that Rolls Royce. I think that's just the greatest thing, you know. Or if it's like you just have a car that's falling apart, it's like, "Oh, I really like a new car. Oh man, it would feel so nice to have a dependable car. It just got to be beautiful. Or it's got to have room with this and that. But oh, that feels so good. And that I did that when I manifested my car. My old car just gave out. So and the new car came in just $1,000 more than I had in my old car, and I've already paid it off, and so I'm really happy about that. So I'm in a receptive mode right now, and expecting miracles.
Yeah. But it's one thing I noticed. I'm a Libran, and they say about Librans that they get out of balance, that and they're not very they it's very and they can never make up their minds. That was me when I was young, but it's not me now.
So everything is in balance, and
Yeah,
the scales are
yeah,
in balance, right?
yeah. But I can make up my mind quite well.
Right, absolutely. And
So we're talking about a new person. I am a new person from what I was.
exactly, yeah. I think I can't remember the name of his book. It's something about dropping your own personality. So yeah, you become a new person, and your
Mhm.
person is your personality, right? So yeah, and um, a lot of that is programming, right?
It really is.
So so there's a lot of out there about new programming. So I want to get back to your question. I started to answer, and then we're way further back about green taro. Shortly
Your
after
first one, wasn't she?
pardon me.
It was your first.
Well, it's my first. Well, actually, she's not the first, but she's the first one that I did not know who she was. Okay, and
I've never heard of her before you either, actually.
yeah, so because she's very unique. She's the mother of all Buddhas, and being brought up in the Western way of thinking and so forth, I knew very little about the Eastern philosophies. I knew some, particularly through the Beatles. When I was a teenager,
Mhm.
they what happened was that the pandemic started, and it was very scary last in March of 2020. It was horrific, and I lost a friend to COVID. A very dear one. Sorry. Anyway, I was frightened, and so I said, "God, what's going on here? Help me out. I
She
gotta
became a good-
understand." But
She was a very good friend, though. Your friend that you lost to
yeah,
COVID, she was
yeah,
extremely good friend.
Sherry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've known her for I don't know 20 years. Um, anyway, she was probably my closest friend. Anyway, I'm getting emotional. She's in spirit. She's great now. I'm sorry.
All right. She just came in to be with you. That's why you're feeling it so intensely.
So I was scared, and so I asked God to show me the way, what's going on, and I had this book um, in my possession, but I really didn't know much about it because every time I started to read it, I'd fall asleep. So um, I went on YouTube, and on YouTube there was the 21 days of green tara being talked about. So I just tuned in. And honestly, it was more like I wasn't thinking. I just tuned in. Like what's that? Yes. um, there was day 4. Um, of the 21 days that I tuned into. And almost the first thing she started talking about was COVID. And I said, oh God, this is exactly what I want to hear. So she was talking about Green Tara, who came to Earth to eliminate or to help humanity be free of suffering, particularly about viral beliefs,
Oh,
viruses.
that's
And so I just said, I guess I got to listen to this. And so I felt such peace after that presentation. And she did teach in those 21 days of Green Tara, what the mantra meant from Om to Tare to Re so hot, what each one of those meant and the vibration of each one of those. And that was the mantra that was taught to the Buddhas in the ancient times. And the after that, I started practicing deeply that mantra, and it radically changed me to becoming much more peaceful about it, about the I want to almost say tyranny of the virus, and that I wasn't going to buy into that. And so I went back to work and just kept on with her um, her wisdom, and I studied with her. And she has 21 emanations. She has yellow Tara, black Tara, red Tara, all these different emanations. And she has the order, the holy order of Takinis with her.
she's also in the Hindu religion.
Yes. Um, but she is called the mother of all Buddhas, but I don't know the exact history of this, which is not all that important to me as much as the delivery of her wisdom and her knowledge and her beauty and her love. And she is an ascended master from another planet. And that planet has evolved and came into the sun. But she had many lifetimes on that planet before she became an ascended master. It was a physical planet much like ours. I don't know what they looked like. I can't even remember the system. But the planet, I think, was called Karnak. And there was a lot of suffering on that planet. And she eventually was able to transmute all the energies that caused that. And she became an ascended master, and she came to Earth to teach. So, as an ascended master, now most people that go on in spirit, whether ascended masters or not, may or may not choose to assist people on Earth. They may be assisting other planets. They may be doing other things, but we're all on a mission of some sort, even in spirit. So, a lot of times I get kind of caught up in the magic of it and not bring it into the reality of me. So that's my quest now. It's
Part of it is, isn't it, that we want to bring the present into the magic rather than bring the magic down here.
yes. I would say it's more like it's not a one-way street. It's definitely it's an invitation, it's a fun invitation. And, I believe in it. So anyway, what I have behind me is Hathor. That's the start of the Hathor altar. Um, she's an ascended master as well. Of course, humanity tended to raise her up to the status of goddess, but she was a good teacher. She was a scientist. She was a shapeshifter. Um, I don't know her whole story. Um, I just know the energy of it, and it's really profound.
I wanted to ask you, and we're actually heading to a full hour. We've been on for 55 minutes.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask you to tell people what your background is, because I know you're a scientist.
Yes. Well, first of all, before I tell you that, I'm both a scientist and an artist. Both artist and science.
Okay, yeah, of course you are.
Yes, everybody is. They just don't know it. Science comes from the word "scio" in Latin, meaning knowledge. That's it. And I would say, well, I love knowledge. I love learning. I love to find out the reasons for, like I was telling you about, even though I was looking at that Alomyces fungi reproduce an entire life cycle when I was in my 20s, I knew that life was sacred right then and there. And people, when they have near-death experiences, they see an even more real form in spirit. They see greener grass. They see colors they've never seen before. So there's a continuum, I believe, from spirit to the physical, and it's very orderly. The starts off with the waves, and I know that there are scientists on this planet that were able to actually show that light is both a particle and a wave. So what does that mean spiritually? It means that's what we are. We're both particle and a wave. Mm-hmm. We are light and we are love, and the scientists will say that you are mostly space. And that
you was talking about the 0 point energy last Thursday. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, the 0 point energy. I'm not even sure that is a kind of a scientific term, as long as, I don't know exactly, but in spirituality it's called the void, I would say.
That's where everything is created, right?
Exactly, which is the feminine. That's the womb.
It's the secret.
Yes. And so to bring it forth into expression, the waves become particles. Particles build on each other, like the quark and the electron and the neutron and so forth and so on, and molecules and so forth and so on. It is not haphazard. It is not by chance. It is by intellectual creation. And it's intentional. It is not haphazard at all. But I do want to tell you, is everything okay, Ms. Elisha?
My daughter just phoned. I'm just messaging her, telling her I'm on the live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Hathor, and I'm not going to talk about Hathor today, but I wanted just to mention the roses that you see behind me to represent the love in your heart. And that is what Roses, Mother Mary is the Ascended Master of 1,000 Roses. And what that means to me is that it means love. And a lot of people that are in the Catholic religion have deified her, but she is actually an Ascended Master. She did walk the way. She was very committed to manifesting love on this planet in the time where the feminine was despised. And so it does kind of speak to my heart in realizing that even though I'm in a feminine body, that I may have had a masculine past, and I think all of us have experienced lives of both sexes.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Right. And so in this life, I have become, I was adamant from the time I was about 8 or 9 years old that from what I saw of the feminine, I wasn't going to deal with that. I was going to be a tomboy. I was going to be a scientist. I was going to be male, 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 male. And so when I'm starting to pound the table. So what I did was I really excelled in science because that was a sure thing and nobody can debate me and all this stuff, because I didn't like wishy-washy of anything. And I was always told to shut up and, not feel anything and all that. So I became a scientist, but my real love, and I had this artistic nature, and I loved being around paints and pictures. And I loved art. I deeply loved art. And I also loved that feeling. I've gone to I never made it to the Louvre, but I did make it to a museum in Florence. And I did see Michelangelo's David.
Oh, it'd be beautiful.
Beautiful. And Pieta also. So I have a deep love for the arts, and I have a deep love for the music, and I have deep love for science. So I am all of those and more.
And now I know that you're a creator because you've told me about some of the things you have created and are in the process of creating.
Right. And that's my joy. And that is in caring for my soul when I do those things. Whereas, and the science is wonderful, but I also need to balance it out with the artistic parts of me as well.
Well, basically, from what you were saying, that creating these creams and things, you're combining both, best of both.
Actually, I majored in botany, and my brother brought me a book called The Secret Life of Plants back then in my 20s. So I learned that they communicate, and I learned that they had what they call secondary metabolites that are amazing. And if I remember correctly, there is a term called humanalone. And humanalone is a structure, I believe, of hops that's in beer and stuff like that. The actual chemical structure looks like a structure of a man. Nature is amazing. For instance, in plants, the molecule that is very important in photosynthesis, where they take the carbon dioxide and sunlight and convert it to oxygen. And then the humans and then animals, we have a molecule in our bloodstream that receives oxygen and brings oxygen to all of our cells. Those structures are identical. Heme and chlorophyll are identical except for one element, and that's in plants it's magnesium, and in animals, including us, is iron, called hemoglobin, and the chlorophyll is the same. The same.
It's pretty interesting because that means then that would be why the plants can be healing agents, like the aspen tree, I think it is, gives us aspirin.
Aspen has quite a bit of salicylic acid in it,
Yeah.
and aspirin is acetylsalicylic acid.
Yeah.
And the only difference between acetylsalicylic acid and salicylic acid is that acetylsalicylic acid smooths out the crystals so that you don't get bleeding in your tummy. You have it. Only reason. That's what acetylsalicylic gets. So they put acetic acid and they react it with salicylic acid, producing acetylsalicylic acid. Really cool technology. I love it that we have their scientists that can make these things happen. The rose, I was talking about the rose earlier. The rose has a scent. Does that scent not be intoxicating at some level? It is just gorgeous. So the scientists took all these rose petals and put them on kind of fat, and then they called it a concrete, and they were able to extract the scent into this concrete. And then they were able to distill it to the point where they had the rose scent in a bottle. That's aromatherapy. That rose scent is so beautiful. And to make that scent, they must take something like 1,000 pounds of petals for 1 gram of this stuff.
Wow.
It's amazing. Amazing.
But the rose also has one of the highest vibrations on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Robert was telling me, that plants have much higher vibration than humans.
I can believe it.
That was in the early 90s. Now, since then, we've come a long way. We have continually to rise in vibrations as species of humans. We are so excited about that. We are actually above the vibration of Jesus when he walked the earth. But at that time, the earth could only sustain that highest level.
That's true. We're slowly, the earth itself is growing. I
Yes.
know, for instance, like the rainbow.
Mhm.
When you and I were younger,
Mhm.
they I think about the time I was about 20, in my early 20s, a
Mhm.
new color came in. And it's a bright pink or something. We hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, I was always fascinated with the rainbows. When my son was coming up, I was constantly pointing out rainbows to him. And when I had talked to Robert, he told me that I could manifest the rainbow if I wanted to in a cloudless sky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I drove home one day and that happened. I was like, how cool is that?
It is really cool.
There was no cloud in the sky. There was rainbow up there. It was not huge. It was compact like this. It was definitely in the sky, not a reflection off a waterfall or anything like that. It was very impressive.
Maddie she says, I just watched a video of a guy that hooked up some mushrooms to speakers, and oh my goodness, the music that they made was amazing. I saw that video too, and it was beautiful. It sounded like a symphony.
Yeah.
It just hooked it in, and this music came out, and I looked at it and said, that can't be what it is. But I played it a few times, and that's exactly what it was. The music of the mushrooms was gorgeous.
But, a man named Paul Stamets gave a speech on TED Talks
Oh,
called
yeah.
The 7 Ways Mushrooms Can Save the World.
But it's amazing. I mean, going from rainbows to mushrooms, but it's just nature
Yes.
is so amazing. And what I really appreciate about it is we're all one. And
Yes. Yes. We're yes, indeed. One of the things you were saying to me was about the plants being them taking the plants into my cosmetic chemistry, which I've been a cosmetic chemist now for pretty much 40 years. And in that time, and I was very steeped in the science and so on in the beginning, but now it's more like into the art part of it, and definitely with the science background with botanicals. We talked about rose. Rose is very uplifting, very beautiful, high vibration. So what I do with my products now is I take the highest vibrational plants and essences and stuff like that, and I incorporate them into a cream or a lotion that is also based on plant biochemistry as well. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And before, pardon me?
You have experience too that and we would put a disclaimer in here. We're not pharmacists, but you have noticed that people get a great deal of benefits out of your.
I like to call it happiness.
I like that.
happiness, to make your muscles happy, to make your skin happy,
I
because
could use happy.
it looks stressed when you have eruptions on your face, redness or whatever, or maybe your knees hurt or whatever, that rubbing um, these plant extracts, whether they're from their aromatherapy type, like with rose, or whether they're oils. There's some amazing oils out there as well that they can benefit you nutritionally from the outside in, and we have nutrition from the inside out. And there are some things that we cannot put on our skin that we can eat, and some things we can't eat that then put on our skin. So
They like
there's
tea tree oil,
hmm?
like tea tree oil.
Yeah, well, tea tree you can imbibe that. Yes.
So I've always been told not to.
No, tea tree and lavender, they're harmless.
Uh,
Things like cedar wood, which repels insects, you should use it very sparingly because of the chemotypes of them. Um, th- there are so many ways. Like so think about pharmacy. What they do is they do take plants. Like let's just talk about penicillin.
mhm.
Penicillin. You don't need to be eating penicillin fungi. It's really bad for you. It can cause cancer or whatever. But they took one component out and purified it, and it became an antibiotic that's used for people to fight off infections.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of there is a balance in everything that's done. You cannot do anything to excess. You have to be careful. And so, I've made a study of this, so I know a lot about what can be harmful and what cannot be, and then how to balance take out what can be harmful in small doses that is beneficial. And one of the things that is on the market all over the place is something called Botox. Botox comes from a bacteria in the soil that's called Clostridium botulism. It's
Yeah.
botulism poison. If you get it, you can die from this stuff. But if you purify it and put it in small doses, you can actually inject it in people's skin. But I do not recommend it to anybody to do that. I don't think that that's all that natural. But we can figure out other ways.
I saw somebody do that once, and I guess the person had just had it done. And I have to say, I was really freaked out.
It
Because,
paralyzes their muscles, right?
yeah,
What?
there was no expression.
Right. It paralyzes the muscles. That's
Yeah,
not a good thing.
yeah,
No.
yeah, it really freaked me out, and I had a visceral reaction.
Yeah, it's to me. I have a certain philosophy on that, and I will stick by it because it's my value system. But that if that's right for her, I don't judge it. It's just very much outside of my being okay with it for myself or anybody that I would advise.
It was actually a him.
Or him.
But I got over it. That was my first reaction when I saw that face and it couldn't move.
Yeah. Well, that it freezes the face, so muscles.
Yeah.
I
So
don't see that as being a good thing. But then other people would love it, so it's great for him. So
yeah.
for he, no judgment here, please no. That is it's just my perceptions and what I think of as being wonderful and good.
So yeah, just so you know, we've been on for an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, but we might want to close for now, and if everybody is willing, you don't have to be on this call, but I can send by field for everyone.
I would appreciate that. And thank you so very, very much. So just so I don't close it off in the middle, approximately how long will you be sending the biofield?
5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. So
Okay.
yes, that'd be great. And anybody who's received the biofield knows it's awesome.
Okay. Well, for everybody listening that wants to tune in and to be receptive to these energies of the biofield healing immersion, I invite you now to take some deep cleansing breaths and become as comfortable as you possibly can. And when this is over, I will go into the silence, and then when the biofield energy immersion is complete, I will say that it is complete, and we'll bring you back, and we'll say good day for today. Okay, take a deep breath in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Coming open and receptive to the biofield healing energies that you're about to receive. Just notice what you notice. You may feel body sensations. You may hear sounds, observe smells. Just allow it. Just notice it. And if your body wants to move, it's okay. You do not have to be in a meditative state. You do not have to assist me. All you need to be is relaxed and open and allowing. And I'm going into the silence. Enjoy. Right now, 5 field healing energies are now complete. And I ask that you receive them in a very good way and that your life is amazing. Many miracles and many blessings.